Tormented by his own guilt and focused on protecting his friends, Shen Lang, along with Gohan, Bulma, and Krillin, decided to board Kami's ship. There was some sense of familiarity within the vessel, though it has to be said that the dragon, or rather ex-dragon, felt rather peculiar without having any single remnant of his magic left. He would have to learn how to form basic ki projections, something that, before Kami's unfortunate demise, he was able to replicate with his magical fire abilities. And the vessel going to space wouldn't exactly be the most optimal location to train for stuff like that, but nevertheless, he still asked Krillin for help. The little monk was really eager to help him though, but also really confused. "Oh, Mr. Lang, why did you lose your powers with Kami and Piccolo gone? Mr. Popo still seems to be able to use his powers without them there, just fine." Shen Lang rolled his eyes. It's time to fess up. "Because, Krillin, before everything happened, I was the Eternal Dragon." "No way! Shenron! Is that you, old buddy?" "Be quiet or Bulma will hear you. And nowadays it's just Lang. I don't know anymore. It just feels like I've lost a part of myself." Krillin then scratched his bald head, not really understanding, but he could tell that he was sad though. "Oh, sorry. That must have been a little bit insensitive of me." "Yes, indeed it was a little bit insensitive. Now, are you going to help me or not?" "Well, I mean, we could try not making a hole in the ship, right? That wouldn't be a good thing if we did that." Lang sighed loudly. "No, Krillin, it wouldn't be. We would all be dead." It took them a little over a month to actually get to Planet Namek, and in that time, with Lang and Krillin finding creative ways of training on the ship, they managed to get to work. And one of the most reliable ways in doing so had proven to be image training, something that they had also taught the son of Goku. The ex-dragon was also doing his best to make sure that Gohan was keeping up with his studies, much like what he promised to Chi-Chi, acting like an extra tutor for him alongside Bulma, which was a really good combination. Sadly though, this wasn't a good place to try and take any photos. After taking a few of them, he decided to keep the rest of the film for Planet Namek itself. After all, an alien planet felt much more appropriate in terms of documenting the trip with his newfound hobby. It's not every day that you get to go to a completely different world. But throughout all of this, Lang was still worried. He was wondering whether or not Vegeta had been able to lick his wounds and cause problems for other people, or for them in the future, or if he just simply bled out in his pod and died on the way back home. He kinda hoped the latter. On one hand though, Goku wasn't wrong so far about letting people go. He had been right with Piccolo, he still remembered his good old friend. That was still weird to say, friend, Piccolo? Well, he was given the chances and he was proved correct. But nevertheless, the Saiyan though, he felt like an entirely new way of expressing evil. Piccolo seemed rather tame. Also, being a mere manling made him even more scared than before. He felt small. He was well and truly cut out from his divine self, and left only with the mortal form that had been given to him by Kami. He was lucky to even still exist. Was this a gift or a curse? With all of the anger he had recently had toward his master, he began to wonder, was that the goal from the start? To give him existence beyond Kami's own? Was this to save his life? Maybe the old man was more selfless than Lang had given him credit for. That little outburst earlier may have been unnecessary. Even more regrets and guilt started to pile up upon this thought. Because in a way, he was doing all of this because of an obligation. But in all honesty, he really didn't have to do any of this. He was free to, well, as Kami said originally, do whatever he wanted. Was that the intended prize? This freedom setting him down the path to where he is right now? Or was he even the same person anymore as the Eternal Dragon? Was he just someone new who happened to share Shenron's memories? Someone who had merely just became a facsimile of what used to be? Did the original dragon no longer exist and he was just some kind of clone? It was really hard not to have an existential crisis right now, especially when you're in the middle of a really isolated journey toward an alien planet that you've never been to before, yet it's also your home. But finally, after 34 long days, they finally reached it. And when they did, there's a very strange vibe to it. And again, a familiar one. It was like what Lang thought. He felt like he'd been here before, but it was impossible. Well, maybe it was for Shenron who remembered something about this planet, and that something was so deeply ingrained in their own subconscious, their very being, that it had never left completely. Like, the rest of the knowledge had been lost, but the innate memory of existing on this surface, that remained. But after landing on the planet, to their horror, our heroes felt something rather powerful and not natural. Not only that, but thanks to their own dragon radar, Bulma had discovered that two of the Namekian Dragon Balls were next to each other. Somebody was collecting them before they'd even started. But who? Had it been Vegeta? Well, they did notice his pod flying overhead, with another similar vessel close behind, following in its stead. So wait, if Vegeta's here, then who's following him? Krillin said for a second. The space-time the Saiyans are working for, but how did he know? Did he report back? Lang looked pale, but trying to remain calm for the boy's sake. Or maybe, not only the Saiyans were listening to that device. They all looked at her for a second. What was she going on about?
Oh, that's ominously plausible, Lang said after a moment.
She did have a point. Maybe it wasn't just the Saiyans communicating.
Well, we kind of dodged a bullet, as he might not be interested in Earth for the time being. Well, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, but I'd rather not find out what a guy that Vegeta of all people is afraid of wants from the Eternal Dragon of this planet.
Yeah, that made Krillin feel tense. She could see the fear and capitulated.
All right. I understand your point. I'll keep our camp safe. You three, go and do some scouting. But before Bulma could actually begin to set up the camp, Banan and Sui appeared. It seemed that the enemy had already sent out a scouting party and had found them. Sui started the introductions by damaging the ship immediately, and the three warriors had no choice but to defend themselves. Luckily for them, these two minions were less of a threat than they had thought, that they were nothing. They managed to get rid of them lickety-split. Well, okay, now I gotta do some repairs.
You think you'll be able to fly afterwards? Lang said with very much a lot of trepidation in his voice.
I'll see what I can do. If you were to find any spare parts for me, that would be great. Bring them here when you do.
I think it might be actually easier to bring you one of the smaller ships, like Vegeta's pod.
Gohan chimed in.
Yeah, you could do that too.
Also, hopefully Goku will get here as well. We didn't expect to receive this much trouble. Lang sighed loudly.
The enemies were collecting more Dragon Balls, which was proving to be problematic. They decided to use the radar to eavesdrop on them instead of trying to find the balls, so they could at least try and guess out their enemy. They did manage to get to the outskirts of one Namekian village where an important-looking short alien man with horns was surrounded by a sizable entourage, and of course, given the initial impression, he was threatening the locals. Not only was it pretty unnerving to see so many people resembling his tragically deceased friends, but this overlord, this supposed Frieza, despite his diminutive stature, he seemed terrifying, even more cruel than King Piccolo ever was. He was acting as if he were at the top of the food chain, the apex predator. And most likely, it wasn't just some sort of empty boasting. He probably had the power to back it up. His two main minions also looked scary, but they seemed endlessly loyal to him, probably out of fear and good judgment. But one of the Namekians used his tricks to destroy the scouters of the invaders, which proved to be a really smart move. In the midst of this brutal exchange, one more Dragon Ball was handed over to Frieza and his evil minions to try and stop this bloodshed. And Yeah, it was a very bad moment to concentrate on it now, but Lang was sure that these orbs were much bigger than the set that he had been able to produce. He thought for a second about what kind of dragon might be tied to those. He didn't manage to react in time before Gohan slipped away to try and save a Namekian child from the purple left-hand man of Frieza. Our heroes had to engage in a mad dash with this creature, trying to save this young member of Kami's race. Lang was angry, but surprised to understand that Gohan's distaste for cruelty was this big. Good. At least he was a good egg, but still. They were aware that they couldn't fight this menace on their own. Instead, they had to hide their power levels, lulling this Dodoria into a false sense of security. As he was called by his master, they fell back to the ship, only to find a settlement of capsule homes.
I contacted Earth. My father was able to build a vessel that'll get here in 6 days.
Oh, perfect. That means we'll have to only stall Frieza and Vegeta for almost an entire week.
Lang realized that that wasn't so great.
Well, that sounds doable, right? And who's that?
She pointed at the little Namekian, who introduced himself as Dende. Their new friend, thankful for having been saved, told them the story of their planet, the Great Drought, and the Namekian Elder, who might be able to help them with their predicament.
The drought. That must have been the cataclysm that Kami had fled.
Kami? Dende was interested at that name. Lang explained to the boy the story of their own Namekians, as far as they knew, which amazed the boy. He further explained to the group that only the elder from a dragon clan is capable of creating Dragon Balls at all, and that the final orb lied with said member of their society on a special tower. The leader, whom they call Guru, had discovered that the remaining 6 were divided between 2 parties, one that they knew of Frieza, and the second they guessed being Vegeta. The group then decided to follow that lead, nearly having a close encounter with Vegeta as well. Luckily, thanks to Krillin's quick thinking, or should I say, quack thinking, they were able to avoid the Saiyan Prince barely. When they finally got to the settlement, they were greeted by a fierce Namekian warrior, stated to be the strongest one on the planet. That surprised Lang because the person seemed to be an exact replica of Piccolo. Originally, he even attempted to attack the group before Dende was able to explain the entire situation to him and make him fall back. His name, this warrior, was Nail, and he was Guru's personal bodyguard.
You're in luck. Lord Guru's time is nearing the end, and everything that is happening here doesn't help his already poor health.
When they stood before the Namekian, Lang was surprised at how large the Namekian was. He seemed, though, as kindly as he was massive. After some short introductions, Lang told him the story of Kami and Piccolo.
So, the son of Katas has survived. It warms my heart. Katas. He was a brilliant Namekian who wanted to save his son when the catastrophe struck us. He was a dear friend. I am pleased to know that his legacy has survived in some shape or form amongst the stars. Well, not anymore. But we are interested in righting that wrong. Do you think you can stop the strangers to our planet?
Guru looked at them rather inquisitively.
Well, we don't know, but our friend that is coming here should be able to. Hopefully.
Krillin was starting to sweat on his forehead as Lang was stating his case.
You there. Come closer.
The elder waved at Lang.
There is something familiar about you. I know that it might sound strange, but I used to be the Earth's eternal dragon.
The old man seemed mildly surprised by this admission.
How so? My creator gave me this body at some point in the not-so-distant past. Now that he is gone, no longer with us, I have lost all of my powers, even those that weren't locked within the Dragon Balls.
There was a long pause.
I see. Maybe if this terrible conflict is averted, we should be able to grant you an audience with our dragon known as Porunga.
Porunga?
Yes, he might be able to help you with some pain that you hold within yourself. I can sense it, but I cannot offer you much more, as your condition is a rare one. I can, however, draw on the hidden potential of you and your friends.
The Namekian's massive hand landed atop of his head, right where his horns used to be. And then, something changed within him. It was like a small kindling was starting to spark. Flames were lighting up inside his body. They were starting to burn again, with a brilliant living flame. It still wasn't his old set of skills, but it was something new. Guru then quickly did the same to Gohan as well as Krillin, which increased the odds of them being able to survive all of this. With that new power boost, our heroes decided to try something bold, lure out Vegeta, much to the initial protests of Nail, which allowed Gohan and Lang to find his hiding spot within a lake. So that was getting a little bit sneaky there. With that, the two of them were able to empty the prince's stash and take all of the Dragon Balls for themselves, seeing from afar as he was then ambushed by Zarbon. So he wasn't going to be chasing them anytime soon. Well, I won't be feeling bad for him. But still though, Frieza has the other 4. How are we going to get those? Our heroes had no answer to that so far. And using the opportunity, as well as the downtime, Lang decided to then go and approach Nail for some one-on-one training.
You only had several days for that powerful friend of yours to arrive. I doubt you can gain anything in that time.
The Namekian warrior seemed skeptical.
I need to get a sense of my new potential. Could you honor my request? I want to make it right with my own elder. Surely you understand.
Nail crossed his arms, but nodded slowly. Oh, that stoicism, that was very Piccolo. The Namekian was definitely on a whole other level, much more stronger than anyone he had ever seen, as his movements and power were completely remarkable, even more than the likes of Zarbon when he used it on Vegeta. But still, Lang discovered that some of his techniques came to him naturally, just as if he already knew them for years, which surprised his sparring partner greatly. He wasn't as strong as him, no, but what this was proving was that Lang was a fast learner.
Not bad, Dragon. Thank you, Mighty Nail.
Bulma then talked to them via the communication device.
Listen, we got a problem. It seems Vegeta was able to survive his meeting with Zarbon.
Well, that's an issue.
And he's heading your way.
Lang blinked twice.
That's an even bigger issue.
They would have to be ready. And hopefully, Goku will get there soon. And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now.